Remakes and remasters have been hot topics recently, as we've seen several older games get redone and released onto current platforms for modern sensibilities. The argument always persists between whether a remake or a remaster is better, as some people stand in the court of preserving the original content exactly as it were, where others are more in favour of making the game more accessible to a wider audience. Whilst remakes have been coming out as frequently as celebrities revealing their sexual orientation, this isn't a recent phenomenon. One only needs to look back to the Sony PlayStation 2 era, where a game I previously reviewed, Wild Arms, was remade as Wild Arms Alter Code F. And whilst some may argue that the game loses a lot of the original's charm, there's also the argument that the remake has an overall better aesthetic, which allows emotion to be conveyed more vividly amidst the numerous cutscenes. Wild Arms Alter Code F was developed by Media.Vision and released on the Sony PlayStation 2 in Western NTSC territories in 2005 after significant delays. This limited release, as well as the fact that the new generation of consoles was on the horizon, may have contributed to the fact that the game isn't that well beloved, or often covered over other games in the series today. Whilst the story beats of the narrative are the same as the original title, the plot as a whole has been expanded to shine a more robust spotlight onto each of the characters. Despite this, the localization by Age Tech is at times rather awkward, which also doesn't really help the game's case. Nonetheless, I'm here to pull the trigger on why you should play this charming game, even if you've already played the original. So strap on your cowboy boots, duck under that tumbleweed that's flying towards your skeptical face, and keep your finger on the trigger, because this is going to be an explosive journey. Much like the original title, Alter Code F places us into the boots of three distinct protagonists who carry the narrative collectively. The prologue narratives can no longer be played in any order, but rather in a sequence, which makes more sense when considering their chronology. We start out as Rudy, a wanderer who is currently residing in the frontier village of Surf. Whilst the residents of the village appreciate that he is versatile in the duties that he can perform for them, his motives are put into question by a compromise to their beliefs, when he uses a forbidden weapon to prevent the escape of a beast that was sealed by the fruits of the labour of the village's ancestors. Following this, we join Jack as he is thrust into the bowels of an ancient ruin after an earthquake rocks a temple he is exploring. He is searching for the ultimate power, though he isn't quite sure what that is. His spelunking places him into a situation where he finds an old recording of a race of beings that are said to have fled the lands of Filgaia aeons ago. Finally, Cecilia is a young woman studying at the Curran Abbey. After taking shelter from an earthquake, she is contacted by a being that bequeaths her to set it free. Uncovering the secrets of the Abbey, she discovers that the being was a guardian, and that she, as the sole princess of the kingdom of Adelheid, is a shrine maiden who can communicate with the beings that protect the life of Filgaia. Following this, each character convenes at Adelheid, where after some trying events, they begin their adventure together. I appreciated that this time around, thanks to the way that the game is displayed in full 3D, it's easier to relate to the characters and their situations. Due to the larger number of pixels that the developer had to work with, animations are much more fluid and allow a greater depiction of events, which made the game more exciting to play. Something as simple as Magdalene throwing his coat over Alhazard as a distraction is something that wouldn't have been able to be achieved through the game's original design, I feel. I liked that the greater detail to the characters and the environments elevated each of the scenes and made them feel more immersive. Oftentimes I felt more connected to the characters because of being able to relate to the emotions they were feeling, which were telegraphed by the expressions on their faces. One of the first things you will notice when playing the game is that the design of all the locations are entirely different to what you may be used to. All the towns now have a distinct flavour to them, and the dungeons are laid out in a way that makes the experience fresh for even a veteran player, including new puzzles. I enjoyed this, as it always gave me something to look forward to, and the difficulty of the puzzles often challenged my problem-solving skills. In addition to the locations being different, some of the tools that the characters can acquire to solve the field puzzles have also changed. For example, instead of the stopwatch, Cecilia gains a fire rod that allows her to use streams of flame to solve puzzles. As such, Jack's lighter was changed to jump boots, which can activate ground panels and gives him the ability to jump a little higher. Some dungeons also have navigation puzzles that don't require tools to solve, such as overhead grating that can be grabbed onto, or flipped up to, and a sneaking button that allows you to walk slowly across fragile ground so that it doesn't fall out from beneath you. If you are not sure which objects can be interacted with, you can hold R2 and press cross, which will make your character turn toward any object that they can use, as well as making a yellow dot flash over it. It's quality of life updates like these that made the game more enjoyable overall. When exploring the overworld, you need to make use of a radar that will scan the immediate vicinity to locate any towns, dungeons, and later items, though in order to find any of the locations, an NPC must have mentioned it first. As someone who plays JRPGs thoroughly, talking to everyone, this wasn't a problem for me. However, people that tend to like rushing ahead may find themselves getting stuck and frustrated, even if they are searching for the next destination in the correct location. A handy map can be accessed at any time, along with a compass that will assist to navigate the overworld. All locations in the map are labelled, so it's easy to relocate places that you have already been to before. As you walk around the hostile areas, you'll notice that an exclamation mark will sometimes appear over the head of your character. This is linked to the encounter gauge, which can be extended through the collection of migrant seals. When a white exclamation mark appears, you can press the circle button to cancel the encounter at the cost of some of your encounter gauge. If the mark is green, then there is no cost, and this means that your characters are stronger than the enemy party. If it's red, you are thrust into a handicapped battle where you have either been ambushed, your rear party has been attacked, or a character has been singled out for one turn. If the latter happens to a weaker character, then you're in for a world of pain. I did enjoy this take on the random encounter system, as it gives you, as the player, some agency over the number of random battles that you fight, if you don't dismiss too many of them. You can also cancel an encounter by entering a doorway to another screen, jumping off a ledge, opening a chest, or even interacting with an object. So if you are smart about how you utilize this function, you can make the entire journey much easier to put up with. Amidst the treasures that can be found in dungeons are also white and orange gems that can be collected. White gems replenish the encounter gauge so you can avoid more enemies, whilst orange gems recover a character's vitality. Any damage taken in combat will be healed at the battle's conclusion at the cost of a character's vitality gauge. Characters are healed based on the percentage of missing HP, and this is deducted as a percentage from their vitality. When vitality reaches 0, they can no longer recover after battle, and you are required to rely on items to replenish health. As Cecilia's spells cannot be used outside a battle, you need to take this into consideration when planning out how to tackle long dungeons. In addition to the main cast, an additional 3 characters can join the party permanently, with a further 2 being temporary additions depending on where you are in the game. I felt that ultimately this wasn't necessary, but it was nice to have other characters to play around with, especially when some of the FP abilities have been shifted around. For example, Mystic can no longer be used by Cecilia, but rather now belongs to Jane. Also, Emma is like a blue mage in that she can absorb an extensive list of enemy abilities, one of which allows you to completely steamroll all of the story bosses when used in conjunction with Rudy's Gatling raid ability. She really breaks the game. When you get drawn into a battle from the field, you'll find that you're in a turn-based battle in the same way that the previous game was, but the battlefield is more dynamic in that the characters and enemies run around, which makes the action seem a little more exciting. You can attack, defend, use an item or an ability, as well as use force point FP abilities in a similar fashion to the original title. Rather than each character having 4 different FP abilities, each only has 1 this time around, which I felt streamlined everything. Rudy can use a variety of different arms, and his FP ability makes them more accurate and do more damage. Jack uses fast draw techniques which can be leveled up through using them, and his FP ability makes him take the first turn. Cecilia can use spells that are bound to quest scraps that must be collected across the world of Filgaia, and additionally she can spend FP to summon guardians that the party have acquired. The maximum FP cost to summon is 25% of the FP gauge, with most being at 50%. It's useful if you get into a pickle with the MP and need an element to damage the enemy. Additionally, if a character reaches 100% and gains the condition green status, all negative status effects will be cleared from that character. Outside of battles, characters can no longer choose their own equipment or equip guardian mediums, but I felt that this was not a detriment to the game. Instead, you can find different skills throughout the game and equip them to characters based on the number of skill points that they have available. I felt that this added more versatility to how you shape your characters, and rather than mediums only being able to be summoned if they are equipped, like in the first game, Cecilia can summon any of them, dependent upon her FP in battle. There are a variety of skills, such as those that protect from different elements or status ailments, to those that give characters an ability to block an enemy's attack, or have a higher counter or critical rate, so it's completely possible to find the right combination of skills that works for your playstyle. In addition to the main story, there are a plethora of side tasks that can be undertaken, though all must be completed before finishing the game, as there is no post-game. Littered throughout Filgaia are 30 puzzle boxes that are small block-based puzzles that award some good items when completed. You can also collect a set number of books which allows you to read a visual novel at the Curran Abbey Library, though as exciting as the story can seem, it is poorly localized. Many optional bosses exist, most of whom can only be accessed late in the game with Jack's guitar tool, which are formidable challenges for those players seeking a little something extra. There are also a couple of additional dungeons which amp up the difficulty, though I personally chose not to undertake these in my playthrough. Overall, one of the biggest changes that this game sees is its aesthetic, having completely done away with the previous graphics in favour of the engine used for Wild Arms 3. Whilst that game used cel-shaded characters, AltaCode F opted for full polygonal characters with a kind of gritty filter over the top, as though sand and sunshine is always blowing your vision. The filter is very minor and not obtrusive, and I kinda liked it. As mentioned before, the towns all have distinct looks to them, and the enemy and character models in battle marry the way that they look in the field, which adds some uniformity. Guardian summons have pre-rendered cutscenes which can be skipped with an item, but I enjoyed watching them as they were all nicely crafted. The game also sports some events that are pre-rendered that look really nice. Michiko Naruke returned to score the entire soundtrack, and while some of the beloved tracks from the previous title have been altered, overall I felt that the score of this game was better. In my previous review I complained that the dungeon tracks were too short. I'm happy to say that this is not the case for this title, though these tracks do start again from the beginning if they are interrupted by a battle. My favourite track is called The Power Which Supports the World, that plays in dungeons that are generally associated with the Guardians. It has the main theme playing on a guitar in hints, whilst the rest of the track just bangs on, urging you forward to explore the ancient ruins. One thing I should note about the sound, however, is that whilst the Japanese version of the game had voice acting in battles and some music tracks had singing, this is entirely absent in the English version, which I felt was a shame. I mean, there exist on the Sony PlayStation 1 a plethora of other titles that have Japanese voice acting in battles and other dialogue that weren't stripped, so what gives? If you are a fan of the original Wild Arms, or even if you have never played it, Wild Arms AltaCode F is a game that I would highly recommend. Despite its shortcomings evident in the poor localization, the game does hold up well in all other areas, providing a game that should be experienced by any fans of JRPGs. With motifs and themes of world conservation and the value of life, you may even reflect on your own existence. The additional content and changes made from the original title provide a fresh experience that varies incredibly from just giving the game a fresh coat of paint, which is why I feel you should play it if you get the opportunity. Don't skip out on this one, trust me. By the way, what are your experiences with Wild Arms? Have you played the original and this title, or one or the other? Let me know about it in the comments and how you found either of the games. This has been Venwa with a review of Wild Arms AltaCode F for the Sony PlayStation 2. If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe for more great JRPG content. As always, take care of yourselves, and I hope to see you all again next time. Take care, and bye bye for now.